On a snowy Christmas night, a little boy walked up to a stranger in the mall and said, "I want you to be my dad." But what he didn't know is that the man he chose wasn't even human. Before we dive into this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to more thrilling stories like this one. Let's begin. The first heavy snow of December fell gently over the town of Winterridge, covering rooftops, cars, and trees like a soft white blanket. People walked around with red noses and warm gloves, their breaths turning into little clouds of mist. Christmas decorations hung on every street lamp, and cheerful music played from speakers outside stores. Clara Hayes tugged her coat tighter around her body as she stepped out of her car. The air was freezing, but the parking lot of Snowpine Mall was vibrant with holiday cheer. She looked down at her 6-year-old son Ethan, who was staring at the big Christmas tree near the mall entrance with huge excitement. Mom, look. It's taller than our house," Ethan shouted, jumping up and down. Clara smiled. His excitement warmed her heart more than her thick coat ever could. "I see it, sweetheart," she said, brushing snowflakes off his curly hair. "Do you want to take a picture with the tree before we go inside?" Ethan nodded so fast that his red beanie waddled on his head. "Yes, but can we also see Santa? And the toy shop? And the candy store? And then?" Clara laughed softly. "We'll see everything. It's Christmas time. Today is for fun, remember?" Ethan hugged her leg. Best day ever. It was nice to hear those words. Clara had been trying so hard to make things feel normal after the divorce. Money was tight, loneliness crept in sometimes, and she often cried at night when Ethan slept. But seeing him smile made everything worth it. They walked hand in hand into Snowpine Mall. The warm air inside wrapped around them instantly, and the smell of cinnamon, hot chocolate, and roasted nuts filled the halls. Christmas music played overhead, and fake snowflakes drifted from machines near the giant tree in the center of the mall. Felt magical. Ethan's eyes sparkled as he took everything in. "Mom, can I go see the toy train? It's right there." Clara followed where he pointed. A huge toy train display sat near the escalators, surrounded by other children. "All right," she said, smiling. "But stay where I can see you." "Okay," Ethan said, already tugging his hand free and running toward the train. Clara chuckled softly, shaking her head. "That boy has more energy than the sun." She pushed her shopping cart toward a store window decorated with Christmas sweaters. She only looked away for a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds at most, but when she turned back toward the toy train display, Ethan wasn't there. She blinked twice. No Ethan. Her stomach tightened. At first, she thought he might have just moved to the other side of the train. She walked quickly around the display. "Ethan," she called. No reply. She tried again, louder. "Ethan." Still nothing. Her heart started to pound. She scanned the crowd of shoppers. Families, couples, teenagers, but no little boy with a red beanie. "Oh no," she whispered, panic creeping in. "Not again, please, no." She hurried toward the information desk, thinking maybe a staff member had seen him. But halfway there, the mall lights flickered. All of them. The Christmas lights strung across the huge tree dimmed for a second, as if something had passed through the building. Several people looked up. "What was that?" a woman asked. "Probably just a power surge," her friend answered. Clara didn't care about the lights. She only cared about finding her son. A voice behind her said, "Are you looking for a little boy with a red hat?" Clara spun around. A tall man stood a few feet away, dressed in a long black coat. His skin was pale, almost too pale, and his dark hair looked slightly windblown even though they were indoors. His eyes were a deep, unforgettable shade of dark gray, calm but intense. He looked like he stepped out of a different time period. Clara stared at him, breathless. Yes, that's him. Did you see him? Is he okay?" The man gave a small, gentle nod. "He's perfectly fine. Come with me." She followed without hesitation, her heart still racing. They walked past a few shops until there he was. Ethan sat on a bench near a small Christmas display, Tiny houses, miniature people, softly falling fake snow. The little boy's legs swung back and forth as he talked happily to the mysterious man sitting beside him. Clara froze. Ethan looked perfectly safe. More than safe, he looked comfortable. The strange man stood when he saw Clara approaching. He wandered off to see the little snow village, he explained. His voice was calm, deep, filled with a softness she didn't expect. Clara kneeled down and hugged Ethan tightly. "You scared me, sweetheart." "I'm sorry, Mom," Ethan said with a pout. "I just wanted to see the tiny houses. Then I couldn't find you." "It's okay," Clara whispered, brushing his hair. "Just stay close next time." She turned to the stranger. "Thank you. Really. I don't know what would have happened if you didn't find him." He gave a small nod. "You don't have to thank me." He was alone and looked frightened. Clara noticed the way Ethan held the man's gloved hand as if he trusted him instantly. "What's your name?" Clara asked. "Adrian," he said simply. "Adrian Locke." Clara smiled softly. "I'm Clara. And this is Ethan." "Hi, Adrian," Ethan said proudly. "This is my mom. I like your coat." Adrian gave a small smile back. "Thank you, Ethan. It's old. Very old." Something about the way he said it made Clara tilt her head curiously, but she brushed the thought aside. "You really helped us," she said again. "I mean it." "I didn't do anything extraordinary," Adrian replied. "I just made sure he wasn't alone." But Clara felt there was more to him. Something she couldn't name. He gently released Ethan's hand. "Stay close to your mother, little one." "I will," Ethan said. "But, will we see you again?" The question surprised Clara. Adrian looked at Ethan for a long moment. Something warm flickered in those dark gray eyes. Something almost human, and almost heartbreaking. "Perhaps," Adrian said softly. "The world is smaller than it looks." He stood up, nodded politely at Clara, and walked away. His steps were silent. Completely silent. As if he wasn't touching the ground at all. Clara frowned. Strange man, but she felt no fear. Only curiosity. Ethan tugged at her sleeve. "Mom. I like him." Clara smiled and ruffled his hair. "He does seem kind." Ethan looked in the direction Adrian had gone and whispered, "I hope he comes back." Clara didn't answer, but part of her hoped so too. Snowpine Mall grew busier as the day went on. Carol singers dressed as elves walked around singing Jingle Bells. Families took pictures near the giant tree, and children lined up to meet Santa. Clara and Ethan continued their Christmas shopping, though she kept an extra tight grip on his hand. After an hour, Ethan said, "Mom, can I have hot chocolate? Please." Clara laughed softly. "Of course. It's Christmas. Lead the way." They walked to the cafe area in the center of the mall. The smell of warm cocoa, peppermint, and gingerbread filled the space. Clara ordered one hot chocolate for Ethan and a warm latte for herself. They found a small table near the glass railing that overlooked the lower floor of the mall. Ethan sipped his drink loudly. He said with his eyes closed. "This is the best one ever." Clara smiled. "Because everything tastes better at Christmas." Ethan nodded. "Mom." "Yes. Do I get to pick one big present this year?" Clara hesitated. Money was tight, but she didn't want to disappoint him. "We'll see what Santa can do," she said with a wink. Ethan giggled. "I want a robot. Or maybe a dinosaur that roars. But not the scary kind." Clara nodded. "I'll tell Santa." As they talked, a soft gust of cold air brushed past their table. Clara looked up and froze. Adrian stood nearby. He wasn't carrying any shopping bags. He wasn't with anyone. He simply stood there, tall and calm, as if he had been walking the mall for hours. His dark coat made him stand out among the red and green holiday colors. Ethan lit up instantly. "Adrian!" Clara blinked in surprise as Ethan jumped off his chair and ran to him. Adrian kneeled slightly to make himself smaller for the boy. "Hello again, Ethan," Adrian said, with a small smile that seemed to soften his whole face. "You came back," Ethan said happily. "Mom said maybe you would." Clara felt her cheeks warm. Adrian turned his gaze gently toward her. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I simply happened to be passing by." "Well, you're welcome to join us," Clara said before she could second-guess herself. "We're just having hot chocolate." Adrian hesitated. "I don't drink hot chocolate." "Oh," Clara said awkwardly. "Right. Sorry. You don't have to drink anything. You can just sit." He looked at the empty chair at their small table as if unsure whether he belonged there. But Ethan grabbed his hand and pulled him. "Come sit with us," Ethan insisted. "You're nice." Adrian let out a breath, almost like a defeated sigh but gentle, and followed him to the table. He sat down with surprising grace. Clara smiled politely. "So, are you from around here?" "No," Adrian said softly. "I travel. A lot." "Oh, for work." "You could say that." Clara felt like she was talking to a man made of secrets. Yet something about him made her feel strangely calm, as if his presence itself brought peace. Ethan climbed onto the seat next to Adrian and leaned against him like he had known him for years. Adrian stiffened at first, clearly not used to such closeness, but then relaxed. "Adrian," Ethan said suddenly. "Yes." Adrian's voice was soft. "Do you have a family?" The question hung in the air. Clara widened her eyes. "Ethan, that's a private." "It's all right," Adrian said, lifting a hand gently. He looked at the child, his dark eyes softening. "I had a family. A very long time ago." "Oh," Ethan whispered. "Do you miss them?" Adrian stared at the snow falling outside the large mall windows. For a moment, Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Finally he said, "Every day." Ethan nodded as if he understood, even though he didn't. "I miss my dad too," he said quietly. Clara felt her heart squeeze. "Ethan." "It's okay, Mom," he said softly. Then he looked at Adrian. "My dad doesn't live with us anymore. He used to. But he left." Adrian's calm expression shifted, very subtly, but enough that Clara saw something like pain flicker across his face. "I'm sorry," Adrian said gently. "It's okay," Ethan said. "Mom says families change but love stays." Clara blinked, surprised she'd ever said something that poetic. "It's true," Adrian replied. "Love can survive many things." Ethan stared at him for a long moment. Then he did something that made Clara choke on her latte. He climbed onto Adrian's lap, wrapped his small arms around the man's neck, and said loudly enough for several tables around them to hear, "I want him to be my dad." Clara froze. Adrian froze. A couple at a nearby table looked over with wide eyes. A teenager snickered into his phone. Clara's face turned bright red. "Ethan," she whispered in shock. "You can't say that." "But Mom," Ethan protested, still clinging to Adrian. "He's nice. And he found me. And he listens. I want him to be my dad." Clara opened her mouth, closed it again, and then opened it once more, her brain unable to form words. Adrian looked like a statue, completely frozen. Slowly, he placed a gentle hand on Ethan's back. His voice, when it finally came, was deep and quiet. "Ethan, I'm honored. Truly. But I can't be your father." "Why not?" Ethan's voice was tiny, muffled against Adrian's coat. Clara stood, ready to pull Ethan away, but something in Adrian's calm expression stopped her. "I can't be your father," Adrian said again more softly, "because I am not the kind of man who deserves something so precious." Ethan looked up at him with innocent eyes. "But you're good. I know it." Adrian looked shaken, in a way Clara didn't understand. His eyes lowered. "I wish that were true, little one." Clara gently pried Ethan off his lap. "That's enough, sweetheart. Adrian helped you, but he's still a stranger." Ethan frowned. "But I like him." Adrian stood up slowly. his coat falling around him like a shadow. I should go. Enjoy your evening. Clara stepped forward. No, wait. You don't have to leave. Ethan just says things sometimes. He didn't mean. I know he meant it, Adrian said, looking down at Ethan with a softness that made Clara's chest ache. Children rarely lie about their hearts. He touched Ethan's shoulder lightly. Thank you, he whispered, for seeing something in me that I haven't seen in myself in a very long time. Clara swallowed hard. Adrian gave her a small nod. Take care of him. He turned and walked away, his steps silent once again. Ethan watched him leave with sad eyes. Mom. Yes, sweetheart. Do you think he'll come back again? Clara didn't know what to say. She looked at the large Christmas tree, glowing with fairy lights. She looked at the path Adrian had taken, already swallowed by the crowd. And she whispered the truth. I don't know, Ethan, but I hope so. Because something about that man, something quiet, lonely, and impossibly gentle, felt like a story that wasn't over yet. Not even close. Clara didn't expect to see Adrian again. After the embarrassing scene at the cafe, she assumed he would disappear into the crowd and never return. Most people would. But fate has its own plans, especially in the town of Winterridge, where Christmas magic seemed to run in the air. 2 days after the incident at Snowpine Mall, Clara decided to take Ethan back to finish Christmas shopping. They still needed to buy gifts for his classmates, his teacher, and if the budget stretched far enough, a new winter jacket for Clara that didn't leak cold air through the seams. As they walked through the mall, Ethan held her hand tightly. He looked around every corner, his eyes alert, hopeful. Clara sighed softly. Sweetheart, I know you're looking for Adrian. Ethan looked up. I just want to say sorry. And also, I want to see him. Clara rubbed his head gently. If he's around, we'll see him. They walked past a bakery where the smell of fresh gingerbread filled the air. Ethan stopped to admire a gingerbread house. His face pressed against the glass. That looks yummy, he said. It does, Clara laughed. Maybe we can bake one at home. Ethan nodded eagerly. As they started to walk again, Clara felt a strange sensation, a tiny shiver along her spine. Not fear. Something else. Like eyes watching, but not in a dangerous way. More like someone quietly observing her and Ethan with gentle interest. She looked around and there he was. Adrian stood near the indoor fountain decorated with floating Christmas candles. He leaned slightly on the railing, hands in his long black coat pockets, watching the water lights change from blue to red to green. He looked calm, almost sad. Clara's breath caught. Ethan saw him at the same moment. Mom, it's Adrian. Before Clara could say anything, Ethan rushed forward. Adrian turned at the sound of his name. His face brightened, not a full smile, but a softening of his sharp features. Hello, Ethan, he said warmly. You came back, Ethan said. Adrian's eyes flicked toward Clara, and something unreadable passed across his face. I found myself in the area again, he said quietly. Clara stepped closer, trying not to appear awkward. Hi, Adrian. Hello, Clara. His voice was always calm, almost soothing. I didn't think we'd see you again, she admitted. He nodded slightly. Neither did I. There was a pause, not uncomfortable, but filled with something unspoken. Ethan broke it like a burst of sunshine. Do you want to see the train again? Or the snow village? Or the big tree? Adrian looked down at him with a gentleness that made Clara's heart ache. What would you like to show me first? He asked. The snow village, Ethan said. Come. He grabbed Adrian's hand and pulled him. Adrian allowed himself to be tugged forward, though it was clear he wasn't used to someone being so excited to be near him. Clara followed behind, watching. There was something about Adrian that didn't make sense. He seemed too calm, too graceful, and too distant. Not in a rude way, but in a I have lived a long time and I am tired way. They reached the miniature snow village display. Ethan knelt beside it, eyes wide. Adrian crouched beside him with surprising elegance. "Look," Ethan said. "That's the ice skating people. And the tiny bakery. And the snowman family." Adrian leaned closer. "It's beautiful," he said. "You think so?" Ethan asked eagerly. "Yes," Adrian replied. "There's something comforting about small worlds. They remind us that happiness can exist in tiny places." Clara blinked. "That's beautifully said." Adrian stood slowly, brushing invisible dust from his coat. "I suppose I've had time to think about such things." Ethan looked up at him. "Are you always alone?" The question hit harder than expected. Adrian paused, his expression tightening for a moment before melting into something softer. "I am used to it," he said. "But being used to something doesn't mean you enjoy it." Clara felt something warm stir in her chest. Ethan reached for Adrian's hand. "You're not alone now. You have us." Clara's breath hitched. "Ethan." Adrian looked at the small hand holding his. The moment hung between them like a glowing ornament. "Thank you," Adrian whispered. They spent the next hour walking around the mall together. Adrian didn't shop. He simply accompanied them, answering Ethan's endless questions with patience. "Why is your coat so long?" "It's old-fashioned." "Why don't you eat anything?" "I'm not hungry." "Why are your eyes so gray?" "That is a long story." Clara found herself laughing more than she expected. Adrian wasn't talkative, but everything he said carried meaning, deep meaning. As they stood near the exit, snow drifting softly outside the glass doors, Ethan squeezed Adrian's coat sleeve. "Will you come again?" he asked. Adrian hesitated. "If you want me to." Ethan nodded. "Yes." Clara looked at Adrian. "Thank you for today." "Really?" Adrian gave a slight bow of his head. "I should be thanking you. Humans rarely invite strangers into their joy." Clara blinked. "Humans?" Adrian froze for half a second, so fast she almost missed it. "I meant people," he corrected quietly. Clara felt a tiny flicker of confusion but let it go. He stepped back as if preparing to dissolve into the shadows. "Good night, Clara." "Good night, Ethan." "Good night, Adrian," Ethan shouted. Adrian walked away slowly, his figure blending with the falling snow outside. Clara watched him go, unable to shake the feeling that she had just invited something mysterious and life-changing into her life, something she couldn't explain, and something she wasn't sure she wanted to lose. The world Adrian stepped into after leaving the mall was very different from the colorful warmth Clara and Ethan enjoyed. Outside, the snow fell harder, the sky darker, the streets quieter. He walked with long, graceful steps through the cold night, leaving no footprints behind him. A human walking behind him muttered, "Weird, no tracks." But Adrian kept walking, unaffected by the cold, the snow, or the whispering wind. He reached the edge of Winterridge, where houses turned into long stretches of forest. Past the trees stood a tall, old mansion, dark stone walls, broken iron fences, and windows that glowed faintly like tired eyes. It had been his home for over a century. He pushed the large, creaking door open. Inside, the air was warm but stale, filled with the scent of old books and dying firewood. Candles flickered along the walls even though no breeze moved through the room. "Back already?" a voice echoed. Adrian didn't look up. "Yes." A tall figure stepped out of the shadows. He looked the same age as Adrian, mid-30s, but his eyes were brighter, sharper, more dangerous. His name was Lucian. He smirked. "So, the great Adrian Locke decides to walk among humans again. Did the Christmas lights charm you?" "No," Adrian replied, removing his gloves. "The boy did." Lucian raised a brow. "The boy?" "Yes. His name is Ethan." Lucian stared at him, then laughed. "You've grown soft. Don't tell me you actually like a human child." Adrian felt a hint of irritation. "He reminded me of innocence." "Innocence?" Lucian scoffed. "You forgot what that even means." Adrian walked past him, his coat flowing behind him like a shadow. Perhaps. Lucian tilted his head. You smell like warmth. Adrian froze. Lucian stepped closer, eyes narrowing. You met the child's mother. Yes. Lucian smirked. Ah, so that's it. Human woman. Child. A little bit of attention and suddenly you forget what you are. Adrian turned sharply. I haven't forgotten. Then stay away from them, Lucian snapped. Humans do not belong in our world. They break easily. They trust too quickly. And you, he pointed at Adrian, you care too deeply. It will destroy them. Adrian clenched his jaw. I would never harm them. But harm always follows you, Lucian said quietly. You know that. Adrian walked to the fireplace, staring at the dim flames. I know. Lucian sighed, folding his arms. Adrian, you've lived hundreds of years. You've watched kingdoms rise and fall. You've seen wars, famine, plagues. You survived everything because you refused to get attached. Do not make that mistake now. Adrian's voice softened. Ethan said he wanted me to be his father. Lucian blinked, stunned. Then he laughed, a sharp, cold sound. Oh, that is delicious. A vampire as a father. What did you say? That I didn't deserve it. Lucian's laughter stopped. Ah, he said quietly. So it touched you. Adrian didn't answer. He saw again the hope in Ethan's small eyes. The quiet fear in Clara's. The warmth they offered without asking for anything in return. Something he hadn't felt in centuries stirred inside him. Lucian stepped closer. Listen to me carefully, he said. Do not visit them again. Adrian didn't respond. Lucian added, if the boy loves you, he will be hurt when you disappear. If the mother begins to trust you, she will be destroyed when she learns the truth. And if you care, even a little, it will break you. Adrian closed his eyes. Lucian whispered, you are a shadow, Adrian. Not a man. A shadow. Adrian's voice came out quiet and cracked. I don't want to be a shadow anymore. Lucian stared at him in disbelief. It's too late. Silence filled the room. But Adrian didn't believe that. Not fully. Something about Clara's soft smile, and Ethan's innocent laughter, had awakened something buried deep inside him. Oh, he hadn't felt hope in centuries. He whispered to himself, it might not be too late. Lucian sighed. You will only bring pain. Perhaps, Adrian said. But for the first time in a long time, I want to try. He walked toward the window and watched the snow fall gently outside. Somewhere out there, Clara and Ethan were living their simple human lives. Warm, fragile, beautiful. Adrian touched the cold glass. He wanted to be part of it. Even if it was dangerous. Even if it was forbidden. Even if it broke him in the end. Because when Ethan said, I want him to be my dad, something inside Adrian's chest, something he thought had died centuries ago, had moved. And Adrian Locke was no longer sure he could walk away. Wintridge's annual Christmas festival always felt like something out of a storybook. Rows of glowing lanterns, music floating through the air, fresh snow covering the streets like powdered sugar, and families laughing as they walked between bright wooden stalls. It was the kind of town event that brought people together, warming hearts even in the cold. Clara and Ethan arrived early, bundled in thick jackets and scarves. Ethan wore his red beanie, the same one he had on the day he met Adrian. As they walked toward the festival entrance, Ethan tugged at Clara's hand. Mom, do you think Adrian will be here? Clara smiled softly. I don't know, sweetheart. But the festival is big. Lots of people come. Ethan kicked lightly at the snow. I hope he comes. I want to show him everything. Clara brushed his cheek. If he's here, we'll find him. The festival lights flickered warmly in the late afternoon sky. Christmas songs played from speakers hidden in the trees. Children ran around with glowing sticks, and vendors sold hot cider, roasted chestnuts, and warm cinnamon buns. Clara took Ethan's mittened hand and walked toward the first row of stalls. Can I get a gingerbread man? Ethan asked immediately. After we look around, Clara said. But Ethan wasn't listening anymore. He had stopped walking. Clara followed his gaze, and her heart skipped. 'Cause there he was. Standing near a snow-covered bench under a row of twinkling lights was Adrian Locke. His long coat looked almost black-blue under the Christmas bulbs. His breath didn't fog in the cold air the way everyone else's did. But Clara didn't notice that yet. Her eyes were fixed on the quiet, gentle expression that crossed his face when he saw them. Especially Ethan. "Adrian!" Ethan yelled, running full speed. Adrian crouched slightly just in time to catch the boy in a small embrace, an action so natural it almost startled him. "Hello, Ethan," Adrian said with a soft warmth that seemed rare for him. Clara walked slowly toward them, her heart unexpectedly fluttering. "Good evening, Clara." "Hi, Adrian." She gave a small, nervous smile. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I wasn't planning to come," Adrian said honestly. "But I felt drawn to the place." Ethan grabbed Adrian's hand. "Come with us. We're gonna see everything." Adrian looked at Clara, almost as if asking for permission. Clara nodded. "You're welcome to join us." His expression softened just slightly. "Then I will." They walked through the festival together. Adrian wasn't used to crowds, Clara noticed. He stayed close to them, moving with a silent grace that made him stand out. People occasionally stared, not because he was frightening, but because he seemed like someone from another world. Too calm, too elegant, too timeless. Ethan, however, didn't care. "Adrian, look. It's the carousel." "Adrian, that reindeer statue looks like it's smiling." "Adrian, can we make snow angels later?" Adrian answered each question patiently. "If you like. It does appear joyful." "Yes, we can." Clara watched him closely. The way he interacted with Ethan didn't feel forced. Felt natural. As if he had been waiting his whole life to care about someone again. They stopped by a stall selling handcrafted ornaments. Clara lifted one shaped like a tiny wooden house. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Adrian looked at it. "It reminds me of something." "What?" she asked. He hesitated. "A time when I felt human." Clara's breath caught. She wasn't sure what he meant, but the sadness in his eyes touched her deeply. Before she could speak, Ethan tugged on Adrian's coat. "Can we go to the ice rink? Please." Clara smiled apologetically. "You don't have to go if it's not your thing. I can take him." Adrian shook his head gently. "I'll come." And so they walked to the ice skating rink where children and adults glided in messy wobbles and graceful spins. Snowdrifts sparkled under the lights. Clara rented skates for herself and Ethan. Adrian declined. "I'm better on solid ground," he said with a half-smile. Clara raised a brow teasingly. "You mean you can't skate?" Adrian's eyes glimmered. "I can. I just choose not to." "Why?" she asked. He didn't answer. Clara took Ethan onto the ice. He was terrible at skating, but every time he fell he laughed. Adrian watched from the railing with a soft expression Clara rarely saw. When they returned to him, cheeks flushed from the cold, Adrian held out a hand to steady Clara as she stepped off the ice. His touch was cold. Too cold. Clara blinked, surprised. "Your hands, you're freezing." "Yes," Adrian said quietly. "I always am." She didn't know why that made her chest feel tight. They continued walking through the festival, stopping at stalls and watching performers. Adrian carried Ethan at one point when the boy grew tired, lifting him effortlessly as though he weighed nothing. Clara tried not to stare too long, but she couldn't help it. The sight stirred something deep inside her, something warm. At one point, Ethan fell asleep in Adrian's arms, his small head resting against the man's shoulder. Adrian looked down at the child, his face filled with an emotion Clara couldn't name. "You're very good with him," she said softly. Adrian swallowed. "I never knew I could be." They walked in silence as soft snow began to fall around them. For the first time in many, many years, Adrian felt something like belonging. And Clara felt something she hadn't felt since before her marriage broke. Hope.
The next day, Clara woke early,
still thinking about the way Adrian had held Ethan at the festival.
The way he had walked beside her through the glowing lights, the gentle,
distant sadness that always hovered around him. She couldn't
She
shake
couldn't
the
shake the
feeling
feeling
that there was something strange about him.
Something
hidden.
something important. Yet she found herself wanting to see him again. Later that afternoon, Clara and Ethan decided to return to the festival for the second night. As they walked through the snow-covered streets, Ethan ran ahead with excitement. I hope Adrian is here. I hope
Adrian is here.
Clara smiled uneasily.
I hope.
We'll see,
Clara smiled
sweetheart.
uneasily.
When they reached the festival entrance,
sweetheart.
Clara's
When
heart
they reached
skipped.
the festival
Adrian
entrance,
was there,
Clara's
standing
heart
alone,
skipped.
hands
Adrian
in his
was
coat
there,
pockets,
standing
snow
alone,
settling on his
hands
dark
in his
hair.
coat pockets,
As if he had been
snow
waiting.
settling on
Adrian,
his dark hair,
Ethan yelled
as if he had
and
been
ran
waiting.
to him.
Adrian,
Adrian's expression
Ethan
softened
yelled
immediately.
and ran to him.
Good evening.
Adrian's
Clara
expression
approached
softened
slowly.
immediately.
You came again.
Good evening.
Yes, he
Clara
said.
approached slowly.
I wasn't sure
You came
I would
again.
be welcome.
Yes,
you
he
are.
said.
Clara
I
said
wasn't
without
sure
thinking.
I would be welcome.
Adrian's eyes
You
flickered
are,
with emotion.
Clara said without
They walked
thinking.
together through the glowing
Adrian's
festival
eyes
paths.
flickered with emotion.
This time,
They walked
Adrian
together
didn't stay
through the glowing
behind or
festival
beside them.
paths.
He walked
This
with
time,
them.
Adrian
But the
didn't
peaceful
stay
evening
behind
didn't
or
last.
beside them.
As they
He
passed
walked
the
with
center
them.
of the festival,
But the peaceful
the sound
evening
of bells
didn't last.
and laughter mixing
As
in
they
the air,
passed the center
a
of the
sudden
festival,
cry rang out.
the sound of
Watch
bells
out.
and laughter
Clara
mixing in
turned
the air.
just in time
A
to see
sudden
a
cry
runaway
rang
wooden
out.
sled sliding
Watch
down
out.
an icy
Clara
slope.
turned just in
straight
time to
toward
see a
Ethan.
runaway wooden
Ethan.
sled sliding
Clara
down
screamed.
an icy slope.
The world seemed to
straight
move
toward
in
Ethan.
slow motion.
Ethan.
She lunged
Clara
forward,
screamed.
but
The
she
world
wasn't
seemed to
fast
move
enough.
in slow motion.
Adrian moved.
She lunged
Fast.
forward.
Too
But
fast.
she wasn't fast
In the blink of
enough.
an eye,
Adrian
Adrian
moved.
appeared in
Fast.
front of Ethan,
Too fast.
swept him into
In
his
the blink
arms
of an
and
eye,
turned sharply,
Adrian appeared in
shielding
front of
the boy
Ethan,
with his body
swept
as
him
the
into
sled
his arms
crashed
and
into a
turned
snowbank.
sharply,
People
shielding the
gasped.
boy with his
Clara
body as the
froze.
sled crashed into
She
a
hadn't
snowbank.
even seen Adrian
People
move.
gasped.
One
Clara
second
froze.
he was beside
She
her,
hadn't even seen
and
Adrian
the next
move.
he was protecting
One
Ethan.
second he was
Ethan,
beside her.
Are you okay?
And the next he was
Clara
protecting
cried,
Ethan.
rushing over.
Ethan,
Ethan
are you
nodded,
okay?
still holding
Clara
on to
cried,
Adrian's
rushing
coat.
over.
Yes.
Ethan nodded,
Adrian
still
saved me.
holding on to
Adrian
Adrian's coat.
slowly set him
Yes.
down.
Adrian
Clara's
saved
eyes
me.
were wide
Adrian
with shock.
slowly set him
Adrian,
down.
how did you move
Clara's
that fast?
eyes were wide
Adrian
with shock.
didn't speak.
Adrian,
Clara stepped
how
closer,
did you move
her
that
voice
fast?
trembling.
Adrian
People
didn't
don't
speak.
move like that.
Clara stepped
Adrian looked
closer,
down,
her
saying
voice
nothing.
trembling.
Ethan
People
clutched
don't
Adrian's
move
hand.
like that.
You saved
Adrian
me.
looked down, saying
Yes.
nothing.
Adrian said
Ethan
softly.
clutched Adrian's
I will
hand.
always protect you.
You saved me.
The sincerity
yes,
in his voice
Adrian
shook
said
Clara
softly.
to her core.
I will
But she
always
couldn't ignore
protect
what
you.
she had seen.
The sincerity
Later that
in his
evening,
voice
after
shook
they
Clara
walked away
to her
from the
core.
crowd,
But
Clara
she couldn't
stopped him
ignore
near
what she
a
had
quiet
seen.
corner of the festival.
Later that evening,
Adrian,
after
we
they
need to
walked
talk.
away from the crowd,
He stiffened.
Clara stopped
Clara
him near
took
a
a
quiet
breath.
corner of the
I've
festival.
noticed things.
Adrian,
Strange
we need to
things.
talk.
The way
He
you
stiffened.
move.
Clara
Your
took
hands,
a breath.
they're always
I've
cold.
noticed things.
You never eat.
Strange things.
You always
The way
appear
you
out of
move.
nowhere.
Your hands,
And
they're
today
always
you
cold.
moved faster
You
than
never
any
eat.
person could.
You always appear
Adrian
out of
looked
nowhere.
away,
And
snowflakes
today,
landing on his
you
dark
moved
eyelashes.
faster than any
Clara's
person
voice
could.
softened.
Adrian
Please
looked
tell
away.
me the truth.
Snowflakes
Ethan looked
landing on
between
his
them
dark
nervously.
eyelashes.
Adrian.
Clara's voice
Adrian looked
softened.
at Clara with a
Please
sadness
tell me the
so
truth.
deep she felt
Ethan
it in her
looked
bones.
between them nervously.
You wouldn't believe me, he
Adrian.
whispered.
Adrian
Try me,
looked at
she
Clara
said.
with a sadness
Adrian
so
hesitated,
deep she felt it in
pain
her bones.
tightening his features.
You wouldn't believe
I am
me,
not what you
he
think I
whispered.
am.
Try me,
Clara
she said.
swallowed hard.
Adrian
Then what are you?
hesitated, pain
Adrian
tightening his
closed
features.
his eyes.
I am
Snow
not what
drifted
you
around
think
them,
I am.
quiet
Clara
and
swallowed
gentle.
hard.
When he opened
Then
his eyes
what
again,
are you?
they reflected
Adrian
something
closed his
ancient.
eyes.
Something
Snow
lonely.
drifted around them,
Something
quiet
inhuman.
and gentle.
I'm not a man,
When he opened
said
his
softly.
eyes again,
At least
they
not
reflected
anymore.
something ancient,
Clara's breath
something
caught.
lonely,
Ethan stepped
something
closer,
inhuman.
confused.
I'm not a
Adrian.
man, he said
Adrian
softly.
knelt beside him,
At
his
least,
voice
not
trembling.
anymore.
Ethan,
Clara's
I would
breath
never
caught.
hurt you.
Ethan
Or
stepped
your mother.
closer, confused.
You believe that, don't you?
Adrian.
Ethan
Adrian
nodded
knelt
instantly.
beside him,
Yes.
his voice
You're
trembling.
good.
Ethan,
Adrian's
I would
eyes
never
filled
hurt
with a
you,
pain
or
Clara
your
couldn't
mother.
understand.
You believe
Clara
that,
whispered.
don't you?
What are you
Ethan
saying?
nodded instantly.
Adrian
Yes,
stood slowly.
You're good.
I am
Adrian's
something
eyes
cursed,
filled with a
something
pain
old,
Clara couldn't understand.
something that should stay
Clara
far
whispered.
away from humans.
What are you saying?
Clara shook
Adrian
her head.
stood slowly.
No.
I am
That's
something
not
cursed,
an answer.
something old,
Adrian's voice
something
broke.
that should stay
I'm a
far
vampire,
away from
Clara.
humans.
The
Clara
world
shook
went
her head.
silent.
No,
the lights,
that's not
the music,
an answer.
the snow.
Adrian's voice
all of
broke.
it faded around her.
I'm a vampire,
Clara stared at him,
The world went
breathless.
silent.
Oh,
The
what?
lights, the music,
a vampire,
the snow.
he repeated
all
quietly.
of it faded around
I
her.
have lived for centuries.
Clara stared at him,
I don't
breathless.
age. I don't
what?
breathe as humans
A vampire.
do. I don't eat what you
repeated
eat.
quietly.
And I move
I have
faster
lived
than the
for
eye can follow.
centuries. I don't
Clara
age.
stepped back,
I don't
trembling.
breathe as humans do.
Ethan held
I
onto
don't eat
Adrian's
what you
coat
eat.
tightly.
And I move
Mom,
faster
he's
than
still
the
Adrian.
eye can follow.
Adrian touched
Clara
Ethan's
stepped back,
cheek gently.
trembling.
You should
Ethan
fear
held
me.
onto
I
Adrian's
don't,
coat tightly.
Ethan whispered.
Mom,
because
he's
you saved
still
me.
Adrian.
Adrian closed
touched
his eyes,
Ethan's cheek
fighting
gently.
emotion.
You
Clara
should fear
couldn't
me.
speak.
I
her
don't.
mind raced.
Ethan whispered.
Her heart pounded.
Because you
her
saved
world
me.
twisted.
Adrian closed his
finally
eyes,
stepped back.
fighting emotion.
I should leave.
Clara
he
couldn't
whispered.
speak.
Before
her
you
mind
fear me
raced.
more.
Her heart pounded.
He turned to walk
her
away,
world twisted.
but Ethan cried
Adrian
out.
finally
Adrian.
stepped back.
Adrian
I should
froze.
leave, he
Ethan
whispered.
ran to him,
Before
wrapping
you
his
fear
small
me
arms
more.
around Adrian's waist.
He turned to walk
Don't
away,
go.
but
Ethan
Ethan
begged.
cried out.
Please don't
Adrian.
go. You're my
Adrian
friend.
froze.
Adrian
Ethan
knelt,
ran to him,
tears
wrapping
filling
his
his
small
ancient
arms
eyes.
around Adrian's
You don't
waist.
understand what I
Don't
am.
go, Ethan
I understand
begged.
this.
Please
Ethan
don't
whispered.
go.
You
You're
would
my
never
friend.
hurt me.
Adrian knelt,
looked up at Clara,
tears filling
eyes
his
asking
ancient
a silent
eyes.
question.
You don't
Do you want me to go?
understand what I am.
Clara stared at
I
him.
understand this,
immortal,
Ethan whispered.
gentle,
You would
broken
never
being
hurt
who had
me.
protected her son
Adrian
with his
looked
life.
up at Clara,
She swallowed
eyes
hard
asking a
and
silent
whispered,
question.
I'm
Do you
scared,
want me to
but
go?
I don't want you to go
Clara
either.
stared at him.
Adrian's
This
eyes
immortal,
widened
gentle,
in shock.
broken being
Clara
who had
stepped
protected
forward,
her son with
voice
his life.
shaking.
She
You've
swallowed
been kind
hard
to Ethan.
and
Gentle,
whispered,
patient.
I'm scared,
You
but
saved
I don't
him.
want you to go
I don't
either.
understand all of
Adrian's
this, and I don't know
eyes
what it
widened
means,
in
but
shock.
I don't want this to
Clara
end with you
stepped
walking
forward,
away.
voice shaking.
Snow fell
You've
softly
been kind
around
to
them,
Ethan,
glowing in
gentle,
the festival
patient.
lights.
You
Adrian
saved him.
whispered,
I don't
"You
understand
don't know
all
what you're
of this,
inviting
and
into
I
your
don't
life."
know what it means.
Clara met
But
his
I don't
eyes.
want this to end
Then
with you
stay
walking away.
and show me.
Snow fell softly
Adrian
around
closed
them,
his eyes.
glowing in the
For the
festival
first time in
lights.
centuries,
Adrian whispered,
someone chose him.
You don't know what you're inviting into your life. Clara met his eyes. Then stay. And show me. Adrian closed his eyes. For the first time in centuries, someone chose him. Snow fell silently over Winterridge that night, covering rooftops, fences, and quiet residential streets with bright powdered white. But inside Clara's heart, a storm raged. Adrian was a vampire, creature from stories, from myths, from nightmares. And yet, he had protected Ethan with his life. He had walked with them through the Christmas festival with a gentleness she hadn't expected. He had held Ethan as if he were afraid to break him. And the way he had looked at Clara, broken, ancient, lonely, haunted her. As they walked away from the festival together, neither spoke. It was a strange, trembling silence, fragile, heavy, filled with questions Clara didn't know how to ask. Ethan held Adrian's cold hand like nothing was wrong. Clara kept glancing sideways at Adrian. He looked human, perfectly human. But now that she knew, she saw the subtle signs. The stillness of his chest, the way his breath didn't fog, the way he moved too smoothly, too gracefully, like a shadow made flesh. She finally spoke. Adrian, how long have you been like this? He slowed his steps. Since the winter of 1621. Clara nearly stumbled. 16. You're 402 years old, he said quietly. Ethan's eyes went wide. Wow. That's older than the dinosaurs. Clara let out a shaky breath. No, sweetheart. But it is very old. They reached Clara's house. Warm lights glowed in the windows. A wreath hung on the door. A small Christmas tree sparkled inside. It felt painfully normal compared to the reality she had just stepped into. Adrian stopped several feet away from her porch. I should leave, he murmured. You need time. Clara swallowed. Will you come back tomorrow? Adrian looked startled, like he didn't expect her to want that. If you truly want me to. Clara nodded slowly. Yes, I do. His eyes softened, a rare, vulnerable expression. Then I'll be here. Ethan tugged at his sleeve. Good night, Adrian. Don't be sad. Adrian crouched down, his voice gentle. I'm not sad, Ethan. Not when I'm near you. Clara felt her heart twist. Adrian stood, took one last look at her, then disappeared into the night. So fast the snow barely stirred. Clara stood on the porch long after he left, staring into the darkness. Vampire. Yet, good one. Lonely one. A man who hadn't been chosen, touched, or trusted in centuries. Clara pressed a shaking hand to her chest. What have I invited into my life? But deep down, she already knew the answer. Someone she didn't want to lose. The next morning, Clara woke to sunlight glistening on the snow. Ethan was already awake, bouncing on his toes. Mom, is Adrian coming today? Clara rubbed her tired eyes. Yes. He said he would. Ethan grinned. Good. I want him to help me build a snowman. Clara forced a smile, but her mind raced. How do you build a snowman with a vampire? She spent the morning pacing the living room, checking the window every few minutes. She wasn't afraid, just nervous. Adrian was a walking impossibility, and she didn't know what rules applied. Could he touch sunlight? Did he sleep? Did he have enemies? Just as those questions swirled like a storm, a soft knock came at the door. Clara's heart leaped into her throat. She opened it cautiously. Adrian stood there, dressed in a dark winter coat, snowflakes melting on his shoulders. He didn't look threatening. He looked unsure, as if worried she'd changed her mind overnight. Clara stepped aside. Come in. He crossed the threshold without hesitation. So much for the vampire myths. He looked around her cozy living room with quiet fascination, like someone seeing a home for the first time after centuries of wandering. Ethan rushed in with his boots half on. Adrian! You came. Adrian finally smiled. I said I would. Ethan grabbed his hand. We're gonna build a snowman outside. Come on. Adrian blinked. A snowman. Clara laughed softly. You've built one before, right? Adrian looked almost embarrassed. It's been a very long time. Ethan tugged harder. I'll show you. Come on. Clara watched from the window as Ethan dragged Adrian into the snow. Adrian knelt beside him, watching intently as Ethan began forming a snowball. Like this, Ethan instructed. Adrian copied him. Clara slowly opened the door and stepped outside, arms folded for warmth. Adrian looked up at her, snow clinging to his coat. Clara, he said quietly, you're staring. You don't seem like someone who's 400 years old, she whispered. He gave a small smile. Maybe that's a good thing. Later, after the snowman was built, slightly crooked but adorable, and Ethan went inside for hot chocolate, Clara and Adrian stayed outside. The air was cold and still. Clara finally asked the question she'd been afraid to ask. Why did you tell me the truth? Adrian didn't answer right away. Because you deserved honesty, he said softly. And because I didn't want to disappear from your life without you understanding why. Clara's heart tightened. You were planning to disappear. Yes. His voice cracked slightly. I told myself it was safer for you. For Ethan. Safer from what? Adrian turned toward the woods, expression darkening. My kind, he said. And the ones who hunt us. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. Hunters. As in. Yes, he said. There are people who have been trying to eradicate vampires for centuries. Some would kill anyone who shelters one. Clara took an involuntary step closer. And you came here anyway. Adrian looked at her then, really looked at her, eyes ancient and aching. I couldn't stay away, he whispered. You and Ethan. You make me feel something I haven't felt in centuries. Clara's breath caught. What feeling? He took a slow step toward her. Alive. For a moment neither moved. The world around them, snow, breathless winter air, the distant laughter of children, faded. Adrian's voice dropped to a whisper. But whatever this is between us, it's dangerous. Clara swallowed. Dangerous for who? Me, or you? Both, he murmured. Their eyes held, warm brown meeting cold, impossible blue. And for the first time in 4 centuries, Adrian looked like a man standing on the edge of hope. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay awake listening to the soft crackle of the heater and the distant sound of wind brushing against the windows. She kept replaying Adrian's words. There are people who hunt us. It's dangerous for you. You make me feel alive. It was too much and yet not enough. Around midnight, a soft tapping came from her window. Clara's heart jumped. She opened the curtain and gasped. Adrian stood outside in the snow, his coat dusted white, his expression tense. She rushed to the door and opened it. "Adrian, what's wrong?" "I had to check on you," he said, voice tight. "May I come in?" "Of course." The moment he stepped inside, Clara saw the strain in his face. Something had rattled him. "Tell me," she whispered. Adrian removed his gloves slowly. "There were tracks near your house. Human but not ordinary." Clara's blood ran cold. "You mean hunters?" "Possibly." He turned toward the window, scanning the darkness. "Or someone scouting. Someone looking for me." Clara hugged herself. "Why would they be looking here?" "Because I stayed too long." Adrian's voice was filled with self-loathing. "I should have left after the festival. I've put you and Ethan at risk." Clara stepped forward, grabbing his arm. "No, don't say that. You haven't done anything wrong." Adrian looked at her with an expression so fragile it almost broke her heart. "You don't understand. Vampires. We draw danger with us. Wherever we go, death follows. I don't want that for you." Clara shook her head. "You saved my son's life. You have been nothing but kind. If danger comes because of that, then we face it together." Adrian stared at her, stunned. "You shouldn't care for me," he whispered. "I'm made of shadows. I'm cursed." Clara took a brave breath. "You're not a monster, Adrian." He closed his eyes in agony. "You're wrong." She stepped closer. "No, I've seen monsters. Real ones. The kind who destroy homes with their words and break hearts with their fists." Adrian slowly opened his eyes. "Your ex-husband," he said quietly. Clara flinched. "How did you?" "I saw the fear once. In your eyes, when he tried to take Ethan from you at the courthouse. I saw how you held your son behind you like a shield." Clara's throat tightened. "You were there." "Yes," he said softly. "I was passing through the town that day. Saw you. For the first time. And I never forgot the way you protected your son." Clara stared at him, trembling. "You've watched us before we met." He nodded slowly. "I kept my distance. Always do. But when Ethan ran into me last week, it felt like fate giving me one more chance to feel human." Clara didn't know what to say. And then, a sudden sound broke the silence. Crunch of footsteps outside. Adrian instantly stiffened, eyes turning sharp, predatory. "Someone's near." Clara froze. Adrian moved with supernatural speed, pulling her gently but firmly behind him. "Stay here." "No, Adrian," she whispered fiercely. But he was already at the door, opening it silently. The night outside was black and heavy, the snow absorbing every bit of sound. Clara crept beside him despite his warning. "What do you see?" Adrian's eyes glowed faintly blue in the darkness. "Not a hunter. Someone else." A shadow moved behind her neighbor's fence. Adrian stepped forward, but suddenly stopped. A tall figure emerged slowly from the darkness. Clara grabbed Adrian's coat. "Who is that?" Adrian's jaw clenched. "A mistake from my past." The figure stepped under a street lamp. "Man. Bill. As like frozen steel." Clara shivered. Adrian's voice was low. "Marco." The vampire smiled, sharp and cold. "Hello, old friend." Clara's heart dropped. Another vampire. Adrian stepped protectively in front of her. "What are you doing here?" Marco's smile widened. "I followed the scent of your weakness." Clara felt her blood run icy cold. "Weakness?" Marco's eyes shifted to Clara with disturbing interest. So this is the human woman who makes the great Adrian Locke forget what he is. Adrian's body tensed like a drawn bow. Do not touch her. Marco chuckled. Oh, I won't touch her. Not yet. I just wanted to see the woman who made you break every rule you've lived by. Clara whispered. Adrian. Adrian didn't take his eyes off Marco. Go inside, Clara. Marco tilted his head. She stays. Adrian's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. She leaves. And then Clara understood something terrifying. Adrian wasn't just powerful. He was lethal when protecting someone he loved. Marco took a step forward. Careful, old friend. Humans make you soft. Hunters smell softness. And you've stayed in this town too long. Clara's breath shook. Marco smirked. Don't worry, Clara. I won't kill you. Adrian would never forgive me. But I will tell you this. He leaned closer, eyes gleaming. Love is the easiest way to destroy a vampire. Adrian's face went white with fear. Leave this place, Marco, Adrian said, voice shaking with controlled fury. Now. Marco stepped back, laughing softly. Oh, I'll leave. Now. But Adrian, remember this. His eyes glowed like silver flame. Winter Ridge isn't safe anymore. For any of you. And with a gust of wind, Marco vanished into the darkness. Clara stood frozen, her heart pounding. Adrian turned to her slowly. His expression filled with fear she'd never seen in him before. Clara, his voice trembled. I'm so sorry. Clara swallowed hard. Adrian, what does this mean? Adrian stepped closer, his voice breaking. It means danger has found us. Snow fell softly around them, but the night suddenly felt colder, heavier, darker. Clara looked up at him with trembling fear. What do we do? Adrian met her eyes with an expression both terrified and determined. We protect your son, he whispered. At any cost. And Clara knew in that moment that whatever bond had formed between her and Adrian, whatever fragile trust and impossible connection, had just become a matter of life and death. Danger had settled over Winter Ridge like a second layer of snow, silent, cold, and waiting. Clara barely slept that night. After Marco disappeared into the woods, she and Adrian stayed inside, checking every window and listening for the slightest sound. Ethan slept peacefully in his room, completely unaware that the night outside their home was crawling with threats. When morning came, Clara found Adrian sitting silently in the living room, staring at the fireplace that wasn't even lit. His posture was still tense, too tense. He looked as if he hadn't moved all night. Clara approached quietly. You didn't leave. Adrian turned to her, his eyes softening slightly. I told you I would protect you. I meant it. Clara swallowed, sitting beside him. You look worried. Worried doesn't begin to describe it, he murmured. Marco is unpredictable. And where one vampire appears, others follow. Clara hugged herself. Will he hurt Ethan? No, Adrian said fiercely, eyes burning. I will not allow that. Something in his voice, cold, certain, deadly, sent a shiver through her. Not fear. Trust. Clara looked at him, trying to read what centuries had carved into his face. Why is Marco after you? Adrian stared at the window as snow drifted past like falling ash. Marco and I were turned by the same master. Centuries ago. We were close once. Clara felt her stomach twist. Close. Like brothers. Adrian nodded slightly. Yes, once. Before he became consumed by darkness. Before he decided humans existed only to be hunted. Clara breathed out slowly. And you don't believe that? Adrian's gaze slid back to her. No, I haven't believed it for a long time. I haven't touched human blood in nearly a century. Clara's breath caught. How did you survive? Adrian hesitated, an emotion flickering in his eyes that looked almost ashamed. Animal blood. Keeps me alive though weak. Human blood is stronger, but I refuse to harm your kind. You're not weak, Clara whispered. He gave a soft, broken smile. You have no idea. The silence between them grew heavier. And then Clara said something she never imagined she would. Adrian, stay with us. At least until this danger is over. Adrian's expression shattered into something raw and aching. You're asking a vampire to stay inside your home. With your child. You're not a danger to us, Clara said firmly. You've had every chance to hurt us. You didn't. Adrian looked down. You don't understand what this means. Letting me stay. It ties my fate to yours. Then let it be tied, Clara whispered. I don't want you to leave. There was truth, naked and terrifying. Adrian inhaled softly. I fear for you, Clara. Not just because Marco is near, but because of what you make me feel. Clara's heart beat faster. And what is that? He looked at her then, really looked. His eyes glowing with something ancient and human. Hope, he whispered. And hope is dangerous for creatures like me. Before Clara could answer, a sound shattered the moment. Glass breaking. Clara jumped. Adrian was on his feet instantly, eyes flashing silver. Stay behind me. He moved like a shadow, silent, fast, toward the kitchen. Clara followed carefully. On the floor lay a small object, a snow globe shattered. It must have fallen from the shelf due to the draft from an open window. Open. Clara gasped. Adrian turned his head sharply. Clara, take Ethan. Go upstairs. What about you? I'll find who did this. Clara hesitated, panic rising. Be careful. Adrian nodded once, and with a blur of motion he was gone. Clara rushed upstairs, shaking Ethan awake. Baby, we need to stay in my room for a bit, okay? Ethan rubbed his eyes. Why? Is something wrong? Just stay with me. She locked the door, holding Ethan close, heart pounding. Downstairs, silence grew thicker and thicker until... Thump. Whoosh. A low growl. Ethan clung to her. Mom. Is Adrian fighting? Clara didn't answer. She was afraid the answer was yes. It felt like hours, but it was only minutes before footsteps came up the stairs. Too light to be Marco. Too gentle. Clara exhaled shakily as Adrian reached the door. It's me, he said softly. She opened it. He stepped inside, face set in grim lines. What happened? She whispered. Adrian looked at Ethan first, reassuring him. You're safe. Both of you. Clara touched his arm. And downstairs. Adrian's eyes hardened. It wasn't Marco. It was a scent scout. A lower vampire that hunts by smell. He came to mark the house. Clara felt her knees weaken. Mark it. For attack. Yes. Adrian's voice turned dark. For a pack to follow. Clara covered her mouth in horror. What do we do? Adrian looked at her, jaw tight, eyes stormy. I need to take you somewhere safe, he said. Tonight. Clara stiffened. Where? My home, he said softly. The old mansion in the woods. Clara swallowed. The haunted one. It's not haunted, he said gently. It's protected. Clara looked at Ethan, then back at Adrian. Okay, she whispered. We'll go. Adrian's shoulders relaxed. Just a little. Thank you for trusting me, he said quietly. Clara didn't answer. But her heart did. Loudly. Night fell early, and by 7 p.m., Winterridge was swallowed by moonlit snow and tall black trees. Adrian walked ahead with supernatural calm, while Clara carried Ethan close, bundled in extra scarves and coats. Ethan yawned sleepily. Mom, where are we going? A safe place, Clara whispered. Adrian kept glancing back at them, making sure they were close. The forest path was cold and silent. Trees creaked under the weight of ice. The moon cast everything in a strange silver glow. Clara shivered. Are we almost there? Just ahead, Adrian said. After several minutes, the trees opened into a clearing. And there it stood. Adrian's mansion. Large, dark, ancient. Its stone walls were covered in frost, its windows glowing faint amber from candlelight. Snow blanketed the roof, and tall, twisted trees surrounded it like guardians. Ethan's eyes widened. Whoa! It looks like a Christmas castle. Clara squeezed his hand nervously. It's big. Adrian stopped in front of the massive door, turning to them. I know it looks intimidating, he said. But inside it's safe. No vampire can enter unless invited by me. Clara exhaled shakily. That's comforting. In a very vampire kind of way. Adrian almost smiled. You'll be protected here. I promise. He pushed open the door. The inside was surprisingly warm. Candles flickered everywhere, giving the massive halls a golden glow. Paintings lined the walls, old portraits of people long dead. The wooden floors gleamed. Ethan whispered, "This place is awesome." Clara admitted softly, "It's beautiful." Adrian led them to a large room near the fireplace. "You can stay here tonight. I'll keep watch outside your door." Clara turned to him. "No. You need rest too." Adrian shook his head gently. "Vampires don't sleep the way humans do. Not unless we must. So you're staying awake all night for us?" His expression, soft, haunted, full of devotion, made Clara's breath catch. "I would stay awake for centuries for you," he murmured. Clara felt her heart twist painfully. But before she could answer, Ethan tugged Adrian's coat. "Adrian!" "Yes. Are you scared?" Adrian knelt to meet his eyes. "Yes," he said honestly. "But fear is not bad. It means I have something to lose." Clara's breath hitched. Ethan thought for a moment. "You won't lose us." Adrian closed his eyes briefly. "I pray you're right." Hours passed. Ethan fell asleep in the giant bed, hugging a pillow. Clara sat on the edge, staring into the fire. Adrian stood near the doorway, unmoving and alert like a statue made of night. Clara finally whispered, "You can sit, you know." He hesitated, then walked to the other end of the room, sitting gracefully in a chair. Clara studied him. "Adrian, do you ever regret what you are?" He paused for a long time. "Yes, every day. Especially now." Clara's heart twisted. "Why now?" "Because for the first time in 4 centuries, I want a life I can't have." Clara felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. "What life?" He met her gaze. "A life with warmth, human laughter, Christmas mornings. A child who looks at me as though I'm worth something. A woman who trusts me with her heart." Clara's breath trembled. "And you think you can't have that?" "I know I can't," Adrian whispered. "Loving me would put you in danger. Keeping me near Ethan would paint a target on his back." Clara stood slowly, crossing the room until she was inches away. "You talk like you're a curse," she said softly. "But you've saved us, protected us. And you didn't choose to become a vampire. Someone did that to you." Adrian looked at her as if her words were sunlight and he was starved of warmth. Then quietly his voice shook. "Clara, if something happens to me, promise me you'll take Ethan and run. Don't stay for me. Don't look back." Clara reached out, touching his cold hand. "I'm not leaving you. You might have to." "No," Clara whispered, her voice breaking. "We face this together. Like a family." Adrian's eyes widened, silver trembling into blue. And then his voice cracked in a way she had never heard. "I've never had a family." "You do now," Clara whispered. Adrian exhaled a sound that was almost a sob. He raised a hand slowly, as if afraid she'd vanish. When his fingers brushed her cheek, the touch was cold, yet the emotion behind it was burning. "Clara," he breathed. She leaned closer, eyes shining. "Yes." Before he could speak, a loud crash echoed from outside the mansion. Adrian instantly snapped to attention, eyes flashing silver. Clara's heart thudded. What was that? Adrian stood, every muscle tight. "They found us." Clara froze. "Hunters." Adrian shook his head slowly, dread filling his voice. Worse. The candles flickered violently. A howl, sharp, inhuman, echoed through the forest. And Adrian whispered the words that made Clara's blood turn to ice. The vampire pack. He stepped in front of her, fangs lengthening, eyes glowing like winter moons. Stay behind me. No matter what. Clara grabbed Ethan, holding him close. Adrian placed a hand on her cheek one last time, voice trembling. I will protect you with my life. And then the doors began to shake. Clara screamed. Ethan cried. And Adrian, ancient, beautiful, deadly Adrian, stood between them and the darkness, ready to fight for the family he never thought he'd have. If you want more stories filled with mystery, love, and supernatural twists, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what comes next.